I'm Mark Halperin. Welcome to Wide World of News. As the country starts to reopen, one area that people ask about all the time is travel. People have been not only in their homes, but they've been unable to travel for work, to see family and friends, and to do the kind of leisure travel that has always been a big part of America and the American economy. Joining us again, Peter Greenberg, the travel editor for CBS News and America's travel detective. Peter, thank you for joining us. Get ready to answer, okay?
I'm ready. I'm standing by.
All right. So one thing that people are curious about, and I'm curious about, is the fiscal shape of airlines and the big hotel chains. What are you seeing now that gives you optimism, and what are your worries about whether the established companies are going to be able to survive into the end of the year?
Well, this week and next week are the earnings reports. We had bad earnings reports last week, really into the tank. They're bleeding cash at the rate of about $100 million a week, each of these airlines, some of them a little bit less than others. Overseas, we've seen failures of airlines last week, a couple this week. Sometimes they're going into bankruptcy or reorganization. Sometimes they're just being liquidated. So here's the biggest problem. Will American, United, and Delta come out of this? Yes. Will Southwest come out of this? Yes. But how will they come out of this? And they're going to come out of it all smaller. They're parking a lot of planes that will never fly again. They asked to drop a lot of routes. Because they're only like 8 people per plane right now, not really sustainable. And the real issue that nobody wants to talk about has nothing to do with the airlines losing money. It has to do with the general economic state of the American public, meaning the credit card defaults on payments are huge. April 1, we're coming up on May 1 now, so the second month cycle's coming in, a lot more defaults. We're talking billions of dollars in defaults. The banks are going to try to limit their exposure, and in doing that, they're either going to reduce credit limits or cancel cards so that when we're finally ready to go back to work or get out, we're not going to have any money to go anywhere. And nobody's really addressing this now, but I smell it and I see it.
There's a story in Politico today that says that some people don't think the airline industry, in terms of the volume of travel and the profitability, will return for maybe as long as 8 years. Does that seem too pessimistic to you, or is that possible?
Way pessimistic. Way pessimistic. Look. Travel as an industry is one of the most resilient industries in the world because of what you said in your introduction. It's part of our cultural DNA. We don't just want to travel, we need to travel. I get that. But now let's look at the numbers. How long did it take us to bounce back from the recession with the airlines, or from 9/11, or from even the Icelandic volcano for 5 days in 2010? So it took us a while, right? It took us maybe 3 months, 6 months, or 9 months. You're going to see a turn by the second quarter of next year. Let's just be honest. This year is a complete gap year for everybody. It's forced. Forget it. Don't even think about it. It's dead. It's dead on arrival. For all sorts of other reasons that have nothing to do with whether or not we want to travel. It has to do with how we're going to travel and who's going to let us. That's the real issue. What's going to really diminish their profitability into the second quarter of next year is the vaccine or some kind of a universally acceptable worldwide immunization card, like the old carte jaune, the old health cards, which we used to have to carry, to say that Mark was properly vaccinated or tested negative. Otherwise, they're not going to let us in. And when you see countries like France saying, we may stay closed until September, this morning, Argentina announced they're banning all flights into the country until September. We're seeing Italy and Spain talking about maybe not opening until November or December, because they're all looking to see what the other guy's going to do about who they're going to let in and under what protocols. That's what's keeping this going to be maybe till second quarter of next year. It's not going to be 8 years, but it's not going to be next month.
I had several people ask me about this incident in which a woman sent out video flying on a full flight from New York down to Florida, I think. I thought most of the flights were flying empty. Are there planes that are really crowded now? And does consumer have to protect themselves, or is the airlines doing a good job of
that? That woman was flying on a full flight. It must have been either a repatriation flight or all medical professionals, because the average number of people on a Delta Airlines flight today is 13%. That's their load factor, which means whether you like it or not, you got social distancing. There's nobody even in a row near you, let alone in an aisle near you. And they're flying unsustainable flights financially, but they're doing it because that's part of the deal to get the federal bailout money.
All right, so let me twist the second part of the question I asked you and re-ask it in a different way. There's one airline in particular that I tried to never fly because I had no confidence that they were concerned with my safety and well-being. I won't say the name of the airline, American, but going forward, the airlines are going to be under huge financial pressure. Are people going to be able to trust that the protocols that the airlines put in place will keep them safe? Or are we all going to basically have to be our own doctors and scientists and carry gear to protect ourselves?
Well, short of walking on the plane with a hazmat suit, the answer is yes to both. There's a certain amount of personal hygiene protection you should do yourself. It's the old days of the the antiseptic wipes on the tray tables, the armrests, the seat backs, the air nozzles above you. But then the airlines right now and the hotels are coming back with all sorts of new hygiene procedures, sanitation procedures, some in partnership with the Mayo Clinic and other organizations that have proven themselves. And what you're going to see, because people do not trust anything anymore, and they're scared. So what you're going to see is a complete change in messaging from travel providers, airlines, hotels, cruise lines, where you're not going to see the beautiful cabin being advertised. You're going to see the cleaning crew being advertised. You're going to see what they're doing to prepare your flight, to prepare your hotel. But you should also be prepared to pay more for that experience. Because what amazes me, Mark, that people still don't realize is that when you go get your airline flight on a traditional day, some people still think that plane's been waiting for a week for you. It's like the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria, and you're going to go voyage to the New World. Not exactly anywhere near that. Airlines have mastered the art, especially airlines like Southwest, of turning those planes in 20 minutes.
Right.
So they're going to have to change their scheduling. They're going to have to change their routing and their frequencies to accommodate deep cleaning between flights. And that's what's going to have to be.
We talked last time about how flights now are in most cases relatively cheap. A lot of people ask me, some people said, aren't flights going to be super expensive because of all these additional costs? Other people said, won't flights be cheap for a while because the airlines need to rebuild customers, volume of customers? It's probably maybe both in some ways, but what's your sense of how this will progress in terms of, will fares be irresistibly low or intimidatingly high?
Well, let's look at it this way. Traditionally, when there's been a problem, the travel industry, not just the airlines, thought they could discount their way out of it. Ain't going to be the case this time. The people who are going to fly when the doors open are the people who have to fly, and the rates will be reflected accordingly. And that's the same thing with hotels. I'm not looking for discounted hotels right now or discounted cruises. They're going to actually keep those rates pretty high. Where they're going to play with us in a very good way for a change is they're going to start discounting their frequent stay and frequent flyer programs, so that if you've accumulated all these miles, which you could up until recently not really redeem for anything because there was no space available, that's where they're going to do the discounting. They're going to lower the mileage levels for redemption, and you'll be, even now you can do it. In fact, you should do it now. Look at flights in November and December, those high peak Thanksgiving and Christmas flights, book them now on miles. You'll be surprised at how low those levels are.
So my frequent traveling friend, who's very familiar with the travel industry, who says she thinks there's going to be really cheap deals to, say, Paris from the US. You don't think that's the case?
Well, depending on the time of the year, we're coming into, by the time we start flying, we'll be in third and fourth quarter, and those are usually cheap deals anyway to Paris. Nobody goes to Paris for Thanksgiving. They go to Paris in July, right? But the bottom line is you will see those deals, but that presumes Paris is going to be open by then. See, remember, we're dealing when Argentina says their airports are closed until September, when they open, it's not going to be a rush because they're going to have new rules in place that everybody's going to have to subscribe to. So bottom line is domestic travel, if you want to redeem your miles now for the fall and the winter, now's the time to do it.
Tell me the most interesting thing you're thinking now about the hotel business and about cruise ships, one of each.
Well, the hotel business has a duty of care issue, right? Think about what you go through when you check into a hotel and how many hands are touching everything, right? The taxi driver who takes your bags out, the doorman who then gives your bags to the bellman who brings it to the room. You go to the check-in counter, you have an exchange or a conversation with the front desk clerk. They hand you a key or a card key, and now you go up to the room. All those points of contact now are being really scrutinized by hotel management to figure out how we can minimize contact. Then once you open the door, we're just getting started. What was the condition of that room? And was it vacant for 24 hours before you got there to kill any virus from sticking around? And what does that mean for housekeeping? When were they allowed to clean the room after the last guest left? Did they have to leave the room vacant for 24 hours before they could clean it? And then while you're in the room, is the housekeeper going to be allowed to even come in? All these things are being dealt with now, which means fewer rooms available, higher rates.
You know who's going to get killed is the people who make the mints for the pillows.
No, it'll be contactless delivery. They'll have dispensers.
They'll come shoot from the ceiling. All right, one thing about cruise ships.
Which, by the way, before we get to cruise ships,
yes.
What were the hotels doing to be environmentally responsible up until recently? They were removing all the single-use plastic items, the little shampoo bottles, the conditioner, and they're putting dispensers on the wall of the shower. That ain't gonna fly.
Rip those out.
Yeah.
I want hermetically sealed in like lucite.
Exactly.
Little bottles of shampoo that have exactly one serving.
And you mentioned cruises, right?
Yeah. One thing. What are you thinking there?
Well, they have a bigger hill to climb, much bigger hill. 366 cruise ships out there that are either anchored off the coast of who knows where or moored somewhere else that are not going to be sailing anytime soon. You may see some sailings by November, but it's not going to really come back until next year. And they're going to have to redesign almost the floor plan of the ships, right? Kiss those buffets goodbye, and that's gone, right? What is the cruise ship experience? It's huge social gathering in confined spaces where you share those experiences together.
Carrot top on the Lido deck.
Right. Or the same issues that are applying. Disneyland is probably not going to open until 2021. I mean, I don't know about you, Mark, but I do not think it's enticing for me to go on Pirates of the Caribbean in my own boat alone. The whole idea is to share it with somebody else, like the roller coaster or whatever else you're going to do. And that requires huge redesign, some of which is possible, some of which isn't in the absence of a vaccine.
Right. All right. Peter, so appreciate you taking time. And as we like to say, whenever we talk to you, we only scratch the surface, but we did a lot of good scratching on that surface. Peter Greenberg, the travel editor for CBS News, America's travel detective, and a man itching to get back on the road. We hope you do soon. Peter, thank you.
You got it, Mark.
And thank you for watching Wide World of News. We'll be back with more conversations in the coming days and weeks. Talk to you soon.